about to enter another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land of imagination. Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What is real?
A field overlooking a wheat field, in fact, where there was a major crop circle at a place called Alton Barnes, very close to Stonehenge in England. There were 8 of us, scientists and engineers, some of whom are employed by the US government here. And what happened, at great surprise, out of absolutely nowhere, swooped a large British military army helicopter, bristling with technology, as of course many of them of course are. But he came in very, very close to us. We had no idea what he was up to at the time. We thought maybe initially that he was taking photographs of the crop circles that were already there. But he came to within, I would estimate, 40 feet of our heads, and there was nothing short, I mean, it was nothing short of harassment. I think there was a major attempt to move us out of that area. I had no idea why they would want to do that, because I've lived there for 48 years. As if one wasn't enough, and the downdraft literally was pushing the hedge row alongside onto our vehicle, a second one swooped in behind him. These army helicopters were pushing us, attempting to push us out of the area. As we moved up the highway, as a public highway close to this field, they followed us behind the hedgerow. But then we stopped, and one of them moved away rapidly from us over the top of this large pattern and moved up to approached a small sphere of light, pulsing. I would estimate it was probably 18 inches or so in diameter, pulsing, and the helicopter came right up to it. It couldn't possibly have missed seeing it, and in one frame of the film has simply disappeared and is now behind the helicopter. The helicopter appears to maneuver itself on its own axis to get a better view of this, because it's been now behind it. The second helicopter is in touch, of course, by radio control, by radio communications, and is being told to back his helicopter up as opposed to turn it. You can see he changes his mind and reverses his helicopter until this ball of light is now right in front of him again, and it simply disappears. With that, they hung around the area for just a few more minutes, and both of them made away. It is obviously an assumption. If I were pushed hard on what I thought they were doing, I would be, I think, forced to say that it seemed as if we were unwelcome. We had walked into an area where they were already engaged in something involving this very small ball of light, which we have not only been reported, had reported to us many times by people in that area. 2 major patterns were already in the field, and the following day a number of more major patterns appeared in that same area.
What is real?
Two over 60s called Dave and Doug claim all it takes to make a corn circle with 2 old planks, a couple of lengths of rope and some imagination. With a stout pair of boots and some gusto, the crop can be laid down in no time at all. Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley say over 13 years they've made more than 100 circles that have fooled scientists the world over.
There, whoa.
We wanted to make the UFO societies think that a UFO had landed, you see. And after a few years, they didn't know whether to believe it or not. And as the years rolled by, we started doing certain patterns. And as you see today, we've got quite complicated in them.
But when the experts inspected Doug and Dave's circle, they weren't impressed at all.
It's an obvious, I mean, it's absolutely obvious. This here, you see, it's not consistent at all with a genuine phenomenon.
I just don't believe them, no.
What is real?
August the 11th, 1996. John Whaley comes rushing in the barge in, the central meeting point of crop circle researchers at Alton Barnes. He has an unbelievable story to tell. He had spent the night doing a night watch on top of Oliver's Castle. It was a cold and wet night, and nothing happened. He fell asleep, but was awakened by a strange sound in the early morning hours. As he got up, he saw bright balls of light rushing over a wheat field below. He grabbed his video camera and pressed record. When we take a closer look at this remarkable footage, we see several interesting similarities between these lights and those filmed on different occasions in later years. For instance, once again we see the acceleration feature. The splitting of a light into two separate lights also was captured by John Smith. And how about this feature? No matter how far the lights travel from the camera's lens, they do not become smaller to our perception. Despite all these anomalous similarities, many people still believe the Oliver's Castle footage to be a hoax. The footage is simply too good to be true.
The footage. However, the accurate analysis carried out by the American researcher Jim Delettoso, an expert of computerized systems of video analysis, have not ascertained any trace of falsification.
My opinion on the Oliver's Castle video footage is that there is no evidence of a hoax. The key thing is that if the Oliver's Castle image was made digitally, that word digital says it went into a computer. In the vertical interval signal of the copy that we have, there is no evidence that it was ever digital format. So the point of the story is I find no evidence of a hoax in the Oliver's Castle crop circle formation, and I find enough unique and interesting things to think that it very well could be real and should be studied further.
But then, in the year 2000, scientist Dr. Elcho Hazeloff from the Netherlands delivered what appears to be a convincing and ultimate proof.
If you perform trivial experimental physics to the plans in these crop circles, you can in fact deliver scientific evidence that these balls of light might very well have caused the crop circle. Inside crop circles, it was discovered 5 or 6 years ago that the nodes, which are the knuckles in the stems, are actually much longer, quite often. And it is suggested that this increase in length is a result of heat. The nodes get warm, they expand, it's a thermal expansion, and they remain long afterwards. So you can measure the increased node length.
And that's exactly what he did. He sampled several crop circles and very meticulously measured hundreds of nodes. The outcome was crystal clear. The nodes had expanded the most in the centers of the circles. The closer to the perimeter of the circles, the less the nodes had expanded. Dr. Haseloff then compared this distribution model of node lengthening with several other mathematical models and discovered a 100% match with one of them. The mathematical model of electromagnetic radiation distribution of a point source.
If you take the electromagnetic model for a point source, which is a ball of light, it's a small source of electromagnetic radiation, and you look at the intensity distribution of this radiation on the floor level, then it's something you can calculate. It's easy, it's straightforward physics. You can compare this with the light intensity distribution from a light bulb hanging on the ceiling. Right below the light bulb there's a bright light, and towards the edges it gradually falls off towards darkness. And this can be determined quantitatively. If you know the height of the lamp, you know exactly what the light distribution is. And it turns out that the node lengthening, as measured in the field, corresponds perfectly to the distribution of a small electromagnetic source hanging above the field. And when I say perfectly, I mean perfectly. This is not rocket science, this is trivial experimental physics. And the statistical relevance is 100%. So when somebody says this crop circle was made by a ball of light, which is a very strange story, the physical evidence corroborates this perfectly. It perfectly supports these eyewitness accounts.
Dr. Haseloff's paper was peer-reviewed, accepted and published in October 2000 by the internationally recognized scientific journal Physiologia Plantarum, the consequences of which were overwhelming. For until scientifically proven otherwise, it is now a scientifically accepted fact that at least some crop circles were generated by balls of light. Researchers and scientists were left baffled.
Well, the connection with crop circles and consciousness and 2012 is that the crop circles, as they evolved, gave us information. And that information gave us specific, a message, data, which was sourced at some point from a consciousness, from a mind. We believe non-human, although it is perfectly conceivable that it was human or is human. And when we then looked and compared that actual message with 2012, we could see exactly the same information. That the Mayan were talking about trending lines, trending systems from the population explosion to the solar sun flare activity, sunspot activity, to temperature change, etc. There are a number of trend lines that led to the same place, which was 2012. So the Mayan are saying in their prophecy that we're transitioning from one period, a not particularly good period, a one based upon dishonesty, deception, greed, into a new period, into the first cycle, part of the new cycle after 2012, is a period up to 2033, which is, they term it the first Khotun of the fifth age, the new period, the golden age, the new age, a better age, based upon truth, respect, honesty, and love.